So we're just working real quick trying to get our jointer table adjusted in here. This is the G490W, and I just want to make this a little quick bit because I was watching the other videos that Grizzly put out and others have put out about how to adjust these tables. The first thing we had to do was check our parallel. You got to check that your table is parallel with the cutter head on each table. Now right now I've got it zeroed, so it should be real quick and easy. You first reach in here. I'm turning the belt by hand, okay? And we have to turn so that the cutter head, the cutter body, is what's exposed, not the cutter itself. And then you just set a good, true straight edge up here on it. Now mine, you can see there's a gap, and that's because I was actually just working on zeroing the scale itself. So I've now zeroed the tables to the blade. But what you would do to check your parallel is you set your straight edge just like this, and then you would adjust your table height up and down. This is to check the parallel, not to set it. Adjust your table height down until this straight edge just touches the body, and then you're going to take your straight edge here and you just go through a couple iterations of how you line it up. So you go on the back, you come to the front, you do it at an angle, okay, and you do this angle. And you do that for both tables to get them adjusted to, or to verify that they are parallel with the cutter head. Now to make the adjustments, I did not make the adjustments, but to make the adjustments, because mine was already parallel. So to make the adjustments, you would loosen this screw, and then you turn these little, oh, I can't remember what they're called, but basically these are what lets you tweak the table a little bit. So thankfully I didn't have to. It's one thing I didn't have to do. But actually, the reason I wanted to make this video more than anything was because on their videos, on the other videos, and in the instruction manual, it just says, oh, these two, you want to adjust your table height. It says break these lock nuts loose, and then just grab this handle underneath and just lower it right down. I was doing that, and I was fighting, and I was fussing, I was so mad. Well, sorry, break the nuts loose, and then you take your handle loose. And I was so irritated because I couldn't get the table to move. And I was like, something else is stuck. And finally, it dawned on me, you have to break the nuts loose, but you also have to loosen the bolt itself. Okay, so those videos, they didn't specify that, and I know that seems really elementary, but I was really getting irritated because nothing specified to actually back the nut out a little bit. So if you break this is just a stop nut. If you break that loose, but don't then back off your bolt, your table still doesn't move. See, I can tighten this up here, take my table loose, right? Now, I've got my this is what lets you raise it up. This is what lets you come down, okay? So now that that's loose, you see, I can take my table up, but I can't come down any further. Because what it's doing is it's hitting this back bolt. So, like I said, I had the nuts loose, but I didn't loosen out the screw, and I was getting furious because I was like looking everywhere online. I couldn't figure out why the heck it wouldn't move. And finally it was like, well, yeah, duh, you have to loosen these out. So if I back this off now you'll see I've got a lot more play. So when you're making your adjustments, of course, you're going to adjust it to the height you want, which on your out feet, of course, it's going to be, basically you're going to want your out feet to be zeroed with the back of the cutter head. So we can go ahead and do that. I'm reaching here, turn my belt again. So now what you're zeroing to is the cutter itself, to the knife. So you get your knife top dead center, which is actually, you think it's not vertical, right? It's, get your knife right up to the point there, and sometimes it's kind of hard to get this thing to balance, but that motor, it wants to roll back to kind of a natural point. Gotta be careful with these precision tools, you know. I think that's all the way up. And so yeah, now you see where, probably hard for you guys to see, there's a gap. So, and your outfeed table, this lever is actually spring loaded. So what you can watch is, see, I come down, went too far. So now I'm gonna let it back up just until that gap under the straight edge closes. Now I can't do this one-handed, but you would let it just close that gap where you can't see daylight coming through, and then you'll tighten your lever back up. So now your outfeed is set 0 with the back of the cutter head. You tighten that up, then you come around, tighten your bolts in, and then tighten down your lock nuts. So that's just to adjust, make sure that your outfeed is 0 with the back of the cutter head. And then of course your infeed here, similar adjustment. You loosen these 2 nuts. Your infeed table, you loosen these 2 nuts, and then loosen this handle to be able to lower it down to where you want it. And then of course you're going to be referencing your scale. This, I was trying to look in here and see what this stupid thing is. It looks like an Allen screw to me, but I could not fit a metric or a standard to it. The manual just says grab a screwdriver and adjust it. Maybe there's a tiny little flathead inside there. I could not get it to adjust, but I was actually able to just kind of manhandle it and just press it back just a little bit. So when I was doing that, I was zeroing the front table to the cutter head and then zeroed my scale here. So we're zeroed in now. And so again, now if I want to adjust my front table, I'm going to take this loose. My nuts and bolts are already loose there. And then I can just crank that so you see our scale moving, so I can drop my table down. So anyway, hopefully that helps some of you guys out there. I know, like I said, I'm going to say it again, it sounds really elementary, but I was freaking out because I had adjusted the stop nuts, but I had not backed out the screws themselves. So you can actually do a kind of micro adjustment. If you're really trying to be careful with it, you can actually have your left hand on the lever and then reach your right hand over here and kind of tweak that screw to really fine tune your adjustment. And then once you get that adjustment in where you want it, you can basically be pulling the table down against the screw. So then once you get the table where you want it, you keep your hand on the lever pulling down and then reach your right hand. So you'd be reaching in like this, making the adjustment. You still got your left hand on the lever, then you reach over, grab this and pull it back to you. And then of course tighten down your stop nuts. So like I said, hopefully that helps somebody. That's just on making sure that your table is parallel, leveled and zeroed, and adjusted where you want it. And then for adjusting this back fence, it's real easy. I've got it flipped up to work on it right now, but to make sure your back fence is square, which obviously mine's not, we're just using a woodpecker 90 degree here. So I just set that against the table and against the back fence, and then we'll get it set in, which I already had it zeroed. I'm not going to show you guys how to do that again. That's simple enough. But yeah, anyway, make sure you break the nuts loose and back the bolts out, or you'll go crazy like me.